Hello, this is O'Malley May, otherwise known as Mallory Napton, and uh, I have the privilege and honor of doing an interview with a great man who means the world to me, John S. Farnam. Uh, he brought order to my chaos and has really changed my life for the better. And taking his classes for the last 13 years now, these lessons that he teaches do not just apply to the application of learning how to shoot a gun, but they apply over your entire life. And I hear his voice in my head all the time, find a way to win, fight through it. Nobody cares about your personal problems. So he greatly inspired me. I have just started to start teaching my own classes, and didn't know I would be doing that this year, but I've started doing it, and I found out just what a joy it is. And I understand a little bit more of why, what keeps this man going. He'll never stop. So I put together some questions that I wanted to ask him to share him with as many good people I know who haven't heard of him or who are new to the training world. So can you tell us a little bit about who John Farnam is?
Oh, he's mostly a colossal bore. And after that flowery introduction, I appreciate that very much. I am a veteran from the fighting in Vietnam, and I've been a police officer this last 49 years of my life, but most of the time these days I run around the world teaching classes as we're teaching this weekend in the art and science of defensive shooting. And I've been lucky enough to stand on the shoulders of many instructors who have gone on before, and I like to think that I have an enormous talent for stealing all the good information from my friends and colleagues and throwing it into a class. And I'm happy that I've been able to inspire you a little bit, and because you represent the next generation of instructors that's going to go on long after I'm sitting in a wheelchair pinching fannies and cocktail waitresses. You're going to be out there instructing.
Yeah, I never would have even considered it. But I always want to send the people I know that come to me to the best that I know. You need to go to John Farnam. You need to go to John Farnam. I recently learned of a few other instructors who I want to refer them to.
Yes.
But I failed to remember what John always teaches in our classes, and that's what, we are all students and we are all trainers. And it took me taking these people out and getting them more comfortable to make them feel comfortable enough to walk into a class with John. And I didn't know that. And so
we live and learn.
Yeah, and I love, I've taken many classes from many wonderful men and other instructors, but I love how John gives us the history of where this knowledge comes from, and him teaching me that really made me feel the just absolute urgency to maintain and spread this knowledge so that it doesn't fall away. Could you maybe, I don't know, what's the word?
Coalesce what you just said?
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't have thought of that word.
the body of knowledge that we teach, both you and I teach, of course, is a product of centuries of hard experience, hard lessons, won, forgotten, relearned, forgotten again, relearned again, and it is our privilege in our generation to share this body of knowledge with our students, so they don't have to make all the mistakes we made, and just as we didn't have to make all the mistakes our instructors made. That's the whole definition of learning and education. It's learning from other people's mistakes, so you don't have to make them.
Yeah.
And when it comes to our particular art, of course, the consequences are enormous. And in this world we find ourselves in, I think things are growing in my lifetime, have certainly grown ever more exciting, and they seem to be at a crescendo right now, particularly in this civilization. And I wasn't sure I would live long enough to ever see anything like this, but we're all living through it, I guess, aren't we?
Yeah.
And of course, down here at the peon level where we all live, we have no influence over national events or world events. And I certainly would not sit here and try to predict anything, lacking the gift of prophecy. But frankly, I'm not very optimistic, and I'm not sure where this is all leading. But it is our privilege and honor to work with students and inspire them and share this knowledge with them, and maybe save some lives, certainly save some mistakes. And that's the joy of being in this business, is to be able to influence people. And I'm not done yet. There are people I want to influence, and there's things I want to learn that I don't know. I get asked by students now and then, and it's very flattering, of course. They say, golly, is there anything you don't know about this? Oh, millions. There's all kinds of things I don't know. And that's why I'm anxious to get up every day and learn something new. For one, I try to do this. I want to be anxious to have my mind changed. I want to be anxious to learn that something I thought was true isn't. And now I have to repent, and I have to say, wow, I've got to look at this a whole different way. Those kinds of experiences, although sometimes painful in the short term, are what make life worthwhile. And you've heard the expression, people who think they're perfect are a real source of annoyance to those of us who are. Yeah, I try to increase my knowledge base every day, and share with my students what I think is most valuable, most relevant to the advancement of this art.
And I recognize that with you, your humility, how much you know, how much history you know. Because I read your quips, your writings, and I'm just like, oh, when's the next one? Because I learn about pieces in history I'd never heard of all the time.
Yes.
And so it shows. It shows that you constantly pursue knowledge.
And I think
you know.
That's important. It's important to know how we got here.
Yeah.
It's important to know that we're not the first ones who ever thought about this. And all the challenges we face in our daily life, it's nothing new. And even in the development of the guns, which is our specialty, it's fascinating to see that all the stuff that is produced, that's been around for centuries. People thought about this long ago. And now we're reinventing it, and oh, this is new. No, I promise you, it isn't new. And I say, giants have gone on before, and they've paved the way so that we can we can carry the ball now in our lives, and at the end of my life, I can look at you and the rest of my instructors and say, well, this is what I've done. Now take it from here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, it's been really worthwhile for me to have, especially the people that come up to me after class, and I see the tears in their eyes, and the joy, and watching them transform from someone who was terrified to be there in the first place and was wondering how the hell they got dragged into this situation,
Right.
But then they leave and they're just a whole new person. They're excited, they're confident, and they know that their lives will forever be changed for the better.
And that's why we do this.
Yeah.
God knows there's no money in it. You know, we do this for those kinds of experiences. And I decided a long time ago, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to touch the hearts of people any way I could. And so, for better or for worse, you know, here we are. As you can probably tell, I would make a poor employee, so I I have to do something like this if I want to make a living.
Yeah. I know you get a lot of variations in students. I mean, do you get more men than you get women?
And the answer to that question is yes, but those ratios are changing. There was a time when it was hard for women to feel comfortable in a class. I think many women wanted to come, but when we run a class, I know when I get a phone call from a female student, the first thing she asks is, "Am I going to be the only woman there?"
Yeah.
You know, they like to know if there can be others there. And during my lifetime and in my decades of doing this, I have observed now women are less, what's the right word? They're less intimidated by coming to a class. They don't say, "Oh, is it okay if I do this?" They just boldly step in, and by golly, I can do this. And I consider that a societal improvement now that women don't sit around looking for permission. Unfortunately, men have gone the other way. So that, let's say that ratio is changing. Now, my wife Vicki teaches a lot of women's classes. There are sometimes women prefer to be in a class just with other women because there are certain questions and topics they are not comfortable discussing in a mixed class. I understand that, yeah. And on the other hand, I've had other women who say, "I don't want to be in a bunch of giggly women. I want to be with the men." So we try to accommodate them either way. But I understand there are issues, especially the issue of like concealed carry.
Yeah.
I try to give women sound advice, but you know, I don't wear a dress.
Yeah.
Well, since I had my therapy, you know.
You're right. Yes.
And what I can say is, well, other women tell me this works pretty well. This is something you might want to try. But I don't have the personal experience, and I never will. Now, my wife Vicki, she does have the personal experience, and sometimes could be far more helpful and
addressing those
issues.
addressing
that question, and you too.
Yeah.
Because you're very good looking and stylish. I mean, I've always known you to be concerned about your appearance.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's normal. If you weren't, I would be worried. But you always look stylish and sharp. Okay, well, what does that involve?
Yeah.
And how do I get a lump on me somewhere that's not going to look ridiculous
Yeah.
and still look attractive?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an art in itself, and something I'm never going to be good at. I'm afraid.
Well, have you tried?
In this civilization, we men dress like slobs. We are slobs. Uh, and I've been married for many years. I'm not trying to be attractive, or if I were young and single and good looking, uh, then my outlook on this whole thing would be different. And that's something I got some young guys in their early 20s who are slim and good looking and not married and looking for romantic sorts of liaisons.
Mm-hmm.
I can't relate to that either. That's 40 years ago. And so I need young people like you to bring me up to date. This is the way we're doing it now. Here's some ideas that seem to work. So all the good ideas are not going to occur to me before they occur to anybody else. I have to reach out to my instructors, especially those who are younger, which is all of them. And you have to tell me, when you're not here, or when Vicky's not here, what do I tell these women? What advice can I give them? I can't draw from my own experience. I have to ask. You have to tell me these things.
Well, I would say that one thing I really, really appreciate about how you train is you don't take it easy on the women. Of course, you're much sweeter to us, but you don't take it easier on us, and you point out how important it is to let us struggle and let us work through this, because we're not going to have you around. We're going to be alone when someone is attacking us. That's how it is. So we need to learn to stand on our own 2 feet and figure this out and solve our own problems without looking to honey. I've noticed in myself when my boyfriend is around, honey, can you help me with this? I'm less willing to solve my own problems.
And that's quite natural. and actually, in any kind of romantic relationship, that's quite healthy.
Yeah.
But this is something I have to, one of the delicate subjects I have to cover in my instructor classes, especially with my male students. We want to hover over these women.
Yeah.
And the moment they have different, let me help you with that. And you have to, stop doing that. It pains me. It pains most men to watch some poor gal struggling with something, but actually struggle is good. Struggle at the time it seems very unpleasant, but it's because she's going to overcome that, and then from that experience she'll learn, I can do this. I don't need someone to do this for me. I can do this. And as you say, when you're in a marriage or any kind of romantic relationship, of course you play off each other, and that's very healthy and that's very normal. But when the unthinkable happens, you might be by yourself.
You most likely will.
And if you've told yourself, I can't possibly be successful unless this other person is here, you've lost the fight already. The fight was over before it ever started. And part of the attitude I have to try to communicate with both male and female students is, you don't need anybody. You can solve problems on your own. You can do this. And it's much easier for me to watch a man struggle than it is to watch a woman struggle. Because I want to get to this day, I want to get it here. Let me do that. Let me show you that. I showed her already. Now, struggle. Not that we never help, but students need to struggle. Struggle is part of learning. You've heard me say before, any learning that's legitimate is painful, and unpleasant. If you're having a great deal of fun and you're very successful at what you're doing, you're probably not learning anything. We learn from failure. Learning is, you heard me say in classes, you're here to fail. You're going to fail over and over again. You're here to overcome. And it won't be fun, and it won't be enjoyable, and it won't be entertaining. It'll be drudgery, it'll be work. And if you're going to have a good time, you're in the wrong place. I remember a quotation from Bill Hickok, or he's credited with this anyway. He talked about the game of poker. He said, "Leave friendship at the door. Uh, if it's companionship you're looking for, there's a bar. If it's entertainment, there's a theater. If it's romance, there are any number of likely whores. We're here to play poker. And if that's not what you're here for, then you need to find something else to do." And I'm not sure that's exactly parallel, but we're here to learn. It won't be fun and it won't be pleasant, but you're going to learn something, and you're going to learn by failure. And if there were another way of doing it, we'd do it that way. Mm-hmm. We could stick a needle into your head and just shove all the knowledge in there. We would, but you've just got to do it. And it's a psychomotor skill. It's a series of psychomotor skills you have to learn, but it's also, as you mentioned, there's a philosophical overlay, without which none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
And somehow we have to communicate that too, don't we? How do we find the words? How do we communicate that? I'm not sure I'm terribly successful, but we have to work at that too. So when the student comes out of a class, the purpose of class is not just to teach you how to operate a machine. Mm-hmm. We can teach chimpanzees how to operate guns, and do. But you have to know how to interface with the criminal justice system. You have to know what to expect when you're involved in a shooting. There's a lot of things you need to know. To be called a complete student, and to be able to call this body of instruction a complete body of instruction. Not just learning how to operate a machine. So we try. We try, and I fail too. But we struggle, and I hope we get some good results now and then.
Well, I think one of the things I appreciated a lot is when you said, there's no such thing as closure. You learn to live with it. Mm-hmm. Life is suffering. I like hearing the truth. I like someone telling me the direct truth and knowing it doesn't just go away. You learn to live with it, and you learn to be victorious over it and rise above it. And that's what's, I think, mindset and overcoming and being victorious. That for me was, it just meant the world. It meant so much more and makes me love this art so much more.
I don't like the word closure.
Yeah.
Because it suggests, I can just forget this.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You gotta forget anything. Experiences, good and bad, are going to be part of you from this point forward. And even unpleasant experiences.
Yeah.
You don't get over them. You get past them. And instead of looking backward, you look forward. Instead of dwelling on yesterday's disasters, you dwell on triumphs that are to come. And that gives you a reason to get up in the morning, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff.
One thing that upsets me about many of my colleagues who are my age, every time we get together, they want to wistfully talk about the good old days. Oh boy, back in the day we did this. Oh boy, do you remember this? Back in the day, can we talk about what we're going to do tomorrow? I'm not ready to die yet. I have things I want to do. I have things I want to accomplish. People I want to meet, people I want to influence, things I want to learn. We should be talking about that, shouldn't we? And not just talking about the good old days. I think, as you probably have heard my wife Vicky comment, she reminds me of this. Listen, I don't hang out with old guys. So if you start acting like an old guy, you can find someone else to hang out with.
Oh. I love that. I will be adopting that immediately. I will be stealing that immediately.
Go for it.
So, what do you think the importance of having the students take a test at the end of a 2-day class?
Take a
test.
Take a test. Yeah. More than anything else, I think the student will know when they're successful, and they're not always.
Yeah.
If they were always successful, it wouldn't be a test, would it?
Yeah.
But when they're successful, that's what gives them real sense of accomplishment. I know I could not do this 2 days ago, and now I can do it. So I learned something, and I think testing is so important from that aspect. It's also important to put together everything they learned, because we harp on this stuff. We repeat, all the little mistakes, and then when you take the test, those mistakes are going to bite you in the ass. Now you're going to get a gig for it. Oh, that's right. You told me that. Okay. Now I've been a million times, and now when you do that, you're going to fail. Oh, can we discuss it? No, the discussion's over. We've been talking about this for 2 days. And maybe up until now, you just pretended to do it. Well, now you're going to have to really do it.
No,
and stop pretending. Or you're not going to be successful. You're going to fail your test and not get your pin. And so there has to be that consequence in there. Otherwise, it's, well, we're all winners here. Well, then why have a test? You can call yourself that if you want. But you heard me say, I think we can all pass this test, but I hope you understand I can't take your word on that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to step up here and show us you can do it. And so, yes, I think that is important.
Well, that leads me into my next question. I've taught 1-day classes and 2-day classes.
Yes.
And the difference is huge.
Yes.
It's huge. I think it's like, this is why John teaches a 2-day class.
Right. I don't like classes. We just get started and we have to stop.
Yeah.
I said I don't like 1-day classes. I don't like 2-day classes. That really isn't enough. But in 2-day classes, at least we can accomplish something. We can get something done. In 1 day, it's hard to accomplish much of anything.
Yeah.
And I know there are places you can go to gun site and take a 5-day class. I have found that in my business model or mantra, whatever you want to call it, people can take weekends off. And we do courses on weekends. Mm-hmm. They can take weekends off without disrupting their work schedule. To ask someone to take an entire week off is a little more difficult. And so the market I try to appeal to is, in 2 days we can really learn something here. And I try to, I don't own a range. I use other ranges. And that's the way I've decided to do this. I don't know if it's a good way or not, but that's the way I do it. And I don't really have a home base. I just run around the country, doing courses like this. But places like Gunsight they have an excellent curriculum. And you go out there and take a 5-day course, and you'll be glad you did. If you can take 5 days off. Most people would actually take vacation time to go out there. And for the people who aren't able to do that, well, they come to me and take a 2-day class. And I think we can do a credible job in 2 days. And anyway, that's what I usually do.
Yeah, I've noticed a huge difference with that. One thing I've noticed is that I'll see a student, usually a woman, but sometimes a man. I'll see her have an excuse already made up in advance. And it seems like a legitimate excuse. Mm-hmm. And most instructors, or not most, I'm sorry, I've seen several instructors say, oh, okay, well, that's understandable. and that'll stop there. You don't need to learn how to do this. And that disgusts me. That really disgusts me. Um, so I like how you get to the root of the problem. You actually ask the right questions and may have and let them answer the question honestly of really why they're getting in their own way.
Uh, as you know, the American educational system manufactures losers.
Mm-hmm.
Sniveling, whining, excuse making losers. They manufacture them. Uh, when you're in a fight for your life, your fight will be very short with an attitude like that, because the fight is already over. Because with any challenge, with that attitude, with any challenge that comes your way, the first thing you do is look for an excuse to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that coming out. We're going to learn how to do this. I can't do this because I have. And you can't. You have to be gentle, but you have to push them and say, well,
Yeah.
you know what? We've had a lot of people say that, and you know what? Most of them discover they can do it.
Yeah.
So I want you to not keep telling what we can't do. Throughout your life, no one's ever going to care what you can't do.
Right.
Don't keep telling people what you can't do. You will not impress them. Other people in the class may do it better. I don't know. But I bet you can do this.
Well, I've heard you say, let's find out what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
And every time, you talk to people and they start talking about, I'm not this, I'm not that, I can't do this. What does that tell you? They're a loser.
Mm-hmm.
They're losers. They're going to lose at everything. Every challenge that comes their way, they got a ready-made excuse. The fight's over already. They've already lost. Instead of finding a way to win, they manufacture an excuse to lose. There's not time to do both. It's got to be one or the other. So, as you know, we try to tell our students, come with us. Yeah. Let's shed that loser attitude and start spending our time finding a way to win. It's out there if you look for it. But when you spend all your time looking for an excuse to lose, you'll be successful. You'll find an excuse and you'll lose. And if you're tired of that, which is, I presume, why you're here, because you're tired of that, okay, then let's shed that attitude. And maybe you can be one of us.
I want to be with you, John. Yeah, and that absolutely does transcend over your whole life, and I always have you in my head. Get it together. So, what books on history do you recommend to help us understand more about what we are currently going through in this time period?
Oh boy, I would say start anywhere. Unfortunately, in the American educational system now, they don't teach history. Mm-hmm. Half the kids don't even know who George Washington was. I think studying American history, studying particularly American military history, there's an excellent book out there that I was referred to called A Nation Made by War. It just chronicles all the military conflicts, which were continuous. I mean, literally continuous. They never stopped. From the 1600s through the present day, they never stopped. But they had a different complexion. They had different reasons. The technology changed. It makes a fascinating study to find out, wow, how we got here. You've heard me say in classes, it is our honor and privilege in our age to be able to use these wonderful killing machines that have been the product of 6,000 years of rotten human history. And now we get to use them. We get to use these wonderful machines. You heard me say before, I'm sure glad I didn't live before anesthesia. And I'm sure glad I didn't live before antibiotics. Uh, yeah, a lot of people had a really miserable life. But in spite of that, they designed things, they built things.
Yeah.
They, their genius came out. In spite of all the health problems that we consider a little more than annoyances, like pneumonia, for instance. Pneumonia, 100 years ago, was a death sentence. You're not going to survive. You're going to die. Today, it's an annoyance. Look how far we come. And yet, in spite of that, those people, with all the terrible things they had to live through, were building, were designing things, were advancing their art. Boy, they deserve a lot of credit. And they can say, life is so painful, and I got this pain and that pain, and I just don't want to do anything. And a lot of people did, I suppose. But some people, in spite of all that, really accomplished things in their lives. From our founding fathers to the people who, the Brownings and the Tokarevs and the people in our art who designed all these machines that we take for granted today, none of that existed. In spite of their kidney stones and in spite of their any number of maladies they had to live with, in spite of starvation in the case of Russians, they still accomplished something with their lives. They just didn't sit around and say, "Oh, my life sucks." Yeah, well, welcome to planet Earth.
Yeah.
And you've heard me talk about this before, but one of my instructors, when I back in 1980, I was a young captain, and it was my honor to attend Army Command and General Staff College, and one of our instructors was actually a KGB defector. He was in his 80s at the time, but he had been involved in the fighting in Stalingrad during World War II. There's another story you can read about if you want to read about some heroic people. And I remember he looked at us once after delivering a lecture at a whole room full of fat ass Americans who have never known a hungry day in our life. And he said, "You Americans crack me up. How could anyone who has enough to eat be unhappy?" And we all looked at our shoes. And, yeah. What do? We spend all the time complaining. This sucks, and that sucks. My life sucks. Well, you look at 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, what those people lived through, and yet still accomplish something. Not all of them, but certainly the heroes that we read about today. The John Brownings and the Samuel Colts and I hate to even mention them because I'll forget to mention someone and somebody will have their feelings hurt, but there's 1,000 of them that we've studied. Wow, look what they got done. In spite of all their challenges. Sometimes it makes me ashamed. I remember listening to a lecture by Yuli Daniel. He was a hero of the Russian resistance during the long since dead. But I remember he said, this is on the eve of his execution. My only regret is that during this life I've accomplished so little. Sometimes I feel like saying that. That's why I don't want to die yet. Because there's more things I want to do.
Yeah. Well, I think you've done a lot and touched a lot of people, and there's a lot of more people spreading this knowledge because of you. And
well,
you've changed the world.
Oh, I hope so. I hope I've helped a little anyway.
I wouldn't be studying as much history as I do unless I had met you.
Well,
I wouldn't have learned all the stuff and pursued that knowledge. You know, like, hey, you know what? There might be something here I really need to look at.
Good.
That somebody
Good.
pointed it out for me.
Good.
Because I was a product of the public education system,
Yes,
and I was a crybaby loser.
Yep.
You know, I had lots of excuses for not accepting the failures that were clearly mine. I did not know how to bear my burden properly, but I learned to.
Yep.
Because I had good people come into my life. You know, we think we're just showing up there to learn how to shoot a gun, but it's a life-changing class. That's what it is.
Well, thank you.
I've been back ever since.
I'm glad I have you around to organize these things.
So, why do you recite poetry? No, he's known as the warrior poet. And I love that he recites poetry in these classes, and I'm doing my best to memorize as many pieces of poetry that I see valuable. But apparently, in history, they used to memorize poetry all the time, and we don't do that anymore. So I wanted to ask, why, what made you start deciding to recite poetry in your classes?
Because our challenge sometimes, we've been talking about, my challenge is to somehow communicate an entire emotional state to my students. Unfortunately, I'm not very clever, as you can see. But sometimes I see some person a lot more clever than I am wrote something. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. But but here's this Kipling or this Shakespeare or this author put it exactly how I want to put it. And so I recite it to my students. And that's my way of communicating an emotional state. And I hope it's successful sometimes.
You won my heart. Over and over.
But that's one thing I do. Not everybody does. I mean, other people, I know other instructors who think it's pretty silly. And maybe it is. I don't know. But I found it effective often enough to keep doing it. So.
Well, I've adopted that philosophy, and
Good.
what I love most when I do it is when I look at everyone, I watching their eyes light up and watching their souls fill up and the excitement and joy,
Yeah.
and sharing a moment with with a wonderful group of people.
Right.
Who, we all want the same thing.
Right.
We all want to protect what's good in this world.
Yes.
And so it's a very spiritual experience.
We can learn that people hundreds of years ago wanted the same thing. They really are spiritual antecedents. And now they're long since dead. They're reaching out to us with their poetry to, in a way, communicate with them. And all the people of ages past that have brought us to this point.
Well, I appreciate that you do that. So, what can and should the individual, regular person, do today to make this world a better place?
I think, as you've heard me say, I think we have to be good people. Not perfect, God knows. But we have to strive to be good people. To find something we can accomplish in our lives. To pay our bills. And be a good and trustworthy person. I think if you have a good credit rating, that means people trust you. They know you're good for it. And when you're a sleazy, no good, I don't care how brilliant you are, you don't have the stature, you don't have the respect from people that you need to be effective. I think if you're going to teach people stuff, you have to be, what's the right word? You have to be respectable. Not perfect, heaven knows. But we strive to be good people. And, within that context, then we can learn this art. And we can say to ourselves, it is appropriate that I be in a position to defend myself when that becomes necessary. And then we spend the rest of the class talking about arranging circumstances to make it not necessary. So, but I think personal respectability is very important. You've heard me, read the poem. I'd rather see a sermon than hear one. Yeah.
My favorites.
I find your counsel confusing, but your example is always clear. So I think we have to try our best to be good people, and set an example, if for no other reason, because then people might listen to us. Yeah. I don't think they would listen to us otherwise, nor should they. So when we have no lack of politicians giving lofty speeches, but then when you look at their personal lives, they're not respectable. We can't respect them, and they're unrepentant. Because I have this power, I don't need to repent. Well, they might garner the affection of some people who think they have something to gain, but they'll never have a respect because they haven't earned it, and apparently they don't want to. Well, I don't want to be a person like that. I remember when who was the neurosurgeon who ran for president? I'm trying to think of his name. But I remember he put it during the debate. He said, "Well, I've seen what politicians, the kind of people they are, and that's why I don't want to be one."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be one of those. They're not good and decent and respectable people. They're a little more than sleazy criminals who have gotten into politics. And no matter how powerful they get, they're still not respectable, and they never will be. And worst of all, they're not repentant. Maybe I suspect that the great judgment is coming. For one, I will have a great deal of explaining to do. There's no doubt about it. But I have to believe that no matter what, there'll be an accounting someday, and they'll have to deal with that, and that's their choice, and I guess they'll have to deal with it. I will have my own explaining to do, I'm sure.
So, what historical figure do you admire most?
Oh boy.
I know.
I like Andrew Jackson.
Okay.
I like Simon Kenton. And what you probably never heard of. Simon was
Don't know who that is.
Simon Kenton was a frontiersman. This is in the early 1700s. Simon Kenton was captured by Indians and escaped twice. He was as tough as they come. Oh boy, you talk about someone can overcome anything. I can really admire a person like that. I like Abraham Lincoln. Certainly a controversial figure in his time. And during the Civil War years, it literally broke his heart to see all the deaths. More people died in the Civil War than had died in any war we fought before or since combined. It was horribly destructive, and he was right there in the middle of it. And you look at pictures of Lincoln during the war from that 4 or 5 years, he must have aged 50 years. In fact, a lot of people have speculated had he not been assassinated, he probably wouldn't have lived much longer anyway, because his health, his mental health, his physical health was broken by that war, and yet, he was so committed to preserving the Union that he literally sacrificed himself. He literally sacrificed himself to keep this nation together. And I'm not sure everything he did was perfect, but I admire someone who believes in something that much. Sir Thomas More, remember the Man for All Seasons? That was was made into a movie. It starred Paul Scofield. A lot of my lines I get from that movie. And I'm not, I'm not sure what the real person was like, but he went to his death for a belief. He wouldn't back down. I probably would have. No, it was a period of history. He was under a great deal of pressure to bless, as it were, Henry VIII's various marital affairs, and he wouldn't do it. And he was so highly respected that for Henry, it was critical that he did. He wouldn't do it. And once again, literally sacrificed himself for a principle. You gotta love a guy like that. I don't think I would be that brave. So I like people like that. All the people we study, none of them are perfect. And you can find here the current sport in this society is applying our curious morals to people who lived 200 years ago. Well, he was a racist. I say, oh, please. They didn't use that term back then. But you can find fault with any of them. You can find fault with Peter and Paul, for that matter. But you have to look at what they're willing to do and the sacrifice they're willing to make, and literally throwing their lives on an altar for something they believe in. That is very special, and it's the only reason we're here today, because people like that stepped up to the plate. Yep. And did what had to be done.
Absolutely. What's your definition of a good instructor, and your definition of not so good instructor?
Well, I'm probably the latter. You heard me say the goal of the student and the instructor are always the same. It's the improvement of the student. And we forget that at our peril. You've also heard me say, as an instructor, you're not here to impress your students. No. You're here to inspire them. Well, how do you do that? I don't know. You're going to have to find your own way to do that, aren't you? We call it the personal use of self. You're going to have to find a way to inspire your students. To me, there is nothing so boring as an instructor that stands up there and says, watch this, and does some, so what? That is shallow and self-centered. And you expect people to give you money to come and see that? What did you just learn? I remember, this was an ILFE conference. ILFE is one of our police organizations I'm a member of, and the conference this year, this goes back 20 years, but it was West Palm Beach, Florida. and a manufacturer of target equipment was there displaying his stuff, which is quite normal. And I know he's a good friend. And he had a hydraulic steel target that would pop up, and he shot it, would fall down, and then it would go down and reset itself, then pop up again. And that was his one of the products he had. And he hired a well-known competitive shooter at the time, who showed up. You know, they wear the silk pajamas with all the. I thought he might be a local Ku Klux Klan Imperial Wizard or something.
Oh my god.
And of course, he had his trusty 20-pound 1911 with all kinds of crap on it, like the circus, you know, announcer, he said, "Now, I'm gonna expose this target for 1 second, 2 seconds, something like that, and so here is gonna demonstrate what you can do." And he gets something like this, and target's over. Bam, like that, he shoots it down. And, and everybody fully applauds and all that. And he did that a couple times, I remember. And then I remember the master of ceremonies looks out, "Now, what do you think of that?" And some humble patrolman from some local department raises his hand. "Yes. So what?" What do you mean? You could not possibly confirm a threat that fast.
Yep.
What are you teaching people to do here? Shoot a movement? This is a police conference. This is an interesting academic exercise that is completely irrelevant. I said, yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Hypocrisy. Just shallow, self-centered hypocrisy. What is anyone learning here? Are you here to entertain? Or are you here to inspire? Yeah, well, probably a little both. But you cannot forget why you're here. And what you're trying to communicate to this group of students. And the moment you forget that, you're a fraud.
Yep.
And I've seen plenty.
I love you. Well, I think I'm just gonna, probably need to wrap this up. I could sit here and talk to John, or more listen to him talk for a long, long time, but why is it so important that we not live in fear? 2020, it seems like, I don't know what happened in 2020, but it seems now that everyone lives in fear now.
Yeah.
So.
I had a student a while ago, Gavin DeBecker. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yeah. He was one of my students.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the book I recommend that talks about the lizard brain.
It's called, one of the books he wrote was called The Gift of Fear.
Yeah.
Which he makes the case that, fear can protect you. Fear can be an ally sometime.
Yeah.
It can also be a deadly disease. If we all live forever, if immortality were something we all had and we all knew it, nothing would ever get done, would it?
No, you don't.
Because when you have forever to do something, you'll take forever. The only reason we accomplish anything in this life is death. Because we know someday we're going to die. And we don't get to know that, do we? We don't get to know when. But if it weren't for that, we would never accomplish anything. And we use words like lifetime because we know we're going to grow old and the bacteria are going to win at some point. And maybe we won't grow old. Maybe we'll die sooner or for some other reason. But we've all been sentenced to death. We just don't get to know when. And it's for that reason that at least some of us go out there and accomplish things.
Yeah.
Because we know we don't have forever to do this. We have a finite amount of time. And so fear is a natural emotion. And as Gavin DeBecker pointed out, sometimes it's a very valuable emotion.
Yes.
Sometimes it might save your life. But victim. When you think of yourself as a victim, you will never accomplish anything. You'll live a miserable and probably short life. And every day will be miserable. And you'll hate it. And when you're gasping your last dying breath, you'll say, oh, thank God it's over. Well, shame on you. Shame on you. I think, when you're standing before St. Peter with an attitude like that, and he said, wait, Skippy. You were born in America.
Yeah.
And this is all you have to show? How much better could it have been? And you're a victim. And I didn't get this done because of him. And these people are keeping me down and all that. You're going to have a miserable and short life. If that's not to be your fate, then you have to say to yourself, what can I get done? What can I get done during this short time I've been given? What can I accomplish? And you lose your fear of failure. That's one thing we have in class. I say you're here to fail. Now you have to lose your fear of that. Lose your fear of failure. You're going to fail. Stop being afraid of it. Lose your fear of death. Lose your fear of pain. We're not afraid of anything. I have this discussion. One of my daughters is a nurse. Bless her heart, I love her to death. But she's concerned about my health, and I appreciate that and all that. And I'm sure she's tired of hearing this. But I say, listen, this body's been hit by everything, from bacteria to bullets. I'm not afraid of anything. And I know my life is more than half over. But as I said earlier, I'm not ready to die yet. It'll come when it comes. But there's still things I want to do. There's still people I want to influence. There's hearts I want to touch. There's things I want to do. And I want to do that as long as I can.
And thank God for that. I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. You look fantastic to me.
Well, I tell you what, I will never keep up with you.
I don't know. He lasts on his feet longer than I do. Although my feet have been getting stronger. So there's that. But yeah, you're just a marvelous man, John, and
well, it's very kind. I assure you, I am wretchedly flawed in many ways. But I have wonderful friends, and I love you, and I appreciate you very much. And when I can influence the next generation of instructors, that is something I live for.
Yeah, I want to bring in more women to do this
Yes.
because I think it's important that we step it up a notch
Yes.
and get more involved. And I know there's more women instructors coming along in the state.
And
of
that's
Utah, so.
you know, something you can do that I have only been marginally successful. You and my wife Vicki and all my, you know, female instructors have got to pick up the baton now.
Yeah.
And you've heard me say this before, but the future of the Second Amendment does not rest with aging males. You know, we have got to inspire our female colleagues to come with us and become one of us.
Yep.
So you're leading the way, and so I'm happy I was able to influence that a little bit.
What I like to tell my girlfriends, you know, female students, is we are the shield maidens. We don't want to be a burden. We want to be a partner.
Yes.
My man knows I have his back, and I know he has mine. And we fight this life and work hard through this life and love this life together.
And you're a team.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just the little woman who tags along behind.
Yeah.
I hope we have outgrown that in this civilization, that we can be romantically involved, but we're still a team.
Yep. I think we're getting there, and I'll see a bunch of students come. They're like, I'm going to bring my wife next time, and I'm like, why weren't they here today?
Drag them kicking
what
and screaming.
What are you doing? Well, you get to go first, but she has to wait? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And another thing is that I tell these guys is quit buying your wives and girlfriends these stupid little guns.
Thank you.
Stop. Just stop it. We like big guns. Learn on a big gun first, and then if she wants to go down to a smaller gun, then let her go down to a smaller gun. But watching these women fight through these stupid, tiny, frustrating little guns.
Hard to shoot.
They're hard to run. They're hard to... You shoot them. You shoot the little gun. We'll take the big gun. That's what I have to say about that.
I think I've told you the story, but I've had the experience of more than one, you know, good-looking young gal come up to me in the class, tears literally streamed out her cheek.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my husband gave me this gun and I hate it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hurt his feelings. And I always say, darling, I have yet to meet a husband who ever complained about having to buy another gun. So don't you worry your pretty little head. You just tell him what you want, and he'll get it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny to watch. I think we'll just leave off with one more question, and then we'll end this. I'd like to know what your greatest hope is.
Oh, my greatest hope is that this nation of ours and this Western civilization continues at least to the end of my lifetime. And maybe the end of yours. My greatest hope is that we're not seeing the end of this civilization. That for the sake of my children and my grandchildren, I'm very concerned. No doubt. So we work at this every day, don't we?
Yes, we do. We change as many hearts and minds as we can.
Yes.
One day at a time. And John, you've changed a lot of hearts and minds.
Well, thank you. Maybe a few.
You will have a high seat in the halls of Valhalla.
Who knows? I may be cleaning the bathroom, but I'll be glad to be there.
Well, is there anything else that you can
Uh,
that you want to say?
Well, it was a good class, and and thank you for doing this, drawing this out of me, and I appreciate doing this, and I appreciate you and all my instructors being there and carrying this on for the next generation. And this is, we're passing the baton here, and you get to take it from here.
Well, I always remember what you said. When least expected, you're elected.
Yeah. So next time you talk,
Oh,
I'll listen.
no. Yes, sir. Thank you for joining us.